Today I'm in South Yorkshire and we're going to a place called Wentworth Castle House and Gardens, and this is near or in a place called Barnsley, and the house here was mostly created during the 18th century, and there's a lot to see here in the gardens and stuff, and I'll also be having a tour inside the house. And actually, I'm sort of on a 2-day tour of South Yorkshire, because tomorrow I'm going to Wentworth Woodhouse. But today's video is, and today's visit, is for Wentworth Castle House and Gardens. So we'll be there shortly. Here we go. We are at the car park. Alright, so I've just arrived and we've got the first peep of the house here. Go and investigate a bit further. Alright, so this is the Grade 1 listed Wentworth Castle and Gardens. And this is the former home of the Earls of Strafford. And I believe this is the Baroque east front. And I will be going for a tour in a couple of hours. So we'll get to see it up closer and inside, hopefully. In 1708, Thomas Wentworth, also known as Lord Raby, purchased a house at Stainborough to create an impressive seat for himself and for others to envy. He felt that he had to do this because, in his opinion, he was denied his true inheritance, Wentworth Woodhouse, which is just a matter of miles away. Convinced of his right to inherit this family estate, he was appalled to see it pass instead down the female line to a distant cousin. This family feud stoked a rivalry that was to result in the two magnificent Yorkshire country houses that go by the name of Wentworth. And that's this house, Wentworth Castle, and Wentworth Woodhouse, just down the road. Thomas purchased the former house here, named Stainborough Hall, in 1708 and began restoring and rebuilding. He was to change its name from Stainborough to Wentworth Castle in 1731. However, Wentworth Castle, even though it is one of Yorkshire's finest 18th century houses, it's neither at Wentworth nor is it a castle. Thomas's first major addition to what was then Stainborough Hall was the Baroque east-facing range of 1709 to 1714. This was to be his statement of wealth and prestige, aimed at his relatives at Wentworth Woodhouse, and designed to make them envious. The front is an impressive 15 bays wide, topped by a balustrade, and the centre 3 bays feature Corinthian pilasters and carvings above the door and first floor windows. And above the central window is the carving of the Order of the Garter, surrounded by a rich display of carvings. And just as we head round to the south range, here we've got a ha-ha. And these were designed to keep animals away from the house, but to not spoil the view from the house by putting a fence or a gate up. So you can see the ditch to stop the animals getting over. So we're heading to the south range there. So this is the south range, and the south range was built between 1759 in 1764 by William, the second Earl. And at this time, the Palladian style of classical architecture was much favoured in Georgian England. At 13 bays wide, it's a fine example of the Palladian style and was greatly admired at the time. The windows at first floor level have the classic triangular pediments, and this is also echoed in the central 5 bays. In the centre, there's an impressive pediment which has an entablature supported by 6 giant Corinthian columns. The end bays have classic Venetian windows with Corinthian columns, as you can see here. Here's another look at it. And then looking out, there's a fine view out into the landscape. And as you can see, the Palladian and Baroque fronts actually blend in quite nicely, with windows of the same style and the balustrades continuous around the top. So before we head into the house in a little while, I'll just have a look at a couple of follies first, or garden features. Here's the ha-ha doing its job. There's Mr. Sheep. And there's the ditch so we can't get over. Random old plinth without a statue or anything on top. Alright, so we're heading up to our first garden feature of the day, and this is pretty tremendous, this is. This has got to be one of the best follies in the country. And this is called Stainborough Castle. And this was built between 1726 and 1730, and it's grade 2 star listed. And this is a small castle in the medieval style, with battlements, towers, curtain wall and gatehouse. And this was somewhat to carry the message that the Earl was of noble heritage, with a lineage traceable back to the Middle Ages. And this is actually built on the site of what is thought to be an old Iron Age fort. And this was built by the Bower family, who had worked for over 6 generations on the estate. And it was rebuilt in 1755 by John Platt, a master mason from Rotherham. And that was after a partial collapse. And it looks like you can actually walk right around it. And you can go inside as well, which I will do in a minute. So as you can see, it's quite vast for a folly in the garden. Alright, let's go and have a look inside. How many towers have we got? We've got 1, 2, 3. I think there's another tower over there. And then you got the entrance towers here. And these 4 towers were actually named after the second Earl's 4 children. And that Earl also placed a posthumous statue of his father by Risbrack in the centre of the castle. And then in 1970 this statue was moved outside the northern end of the east front of the house. Some old style seating here. Let's have a look in this tower at the end. And then let's have a look in those entrance towers. As you can see, it's quite the folly, isn't it, this? As you can see, the one side's totally out of action at the moment. But the other side we can go up, I think, which I will do. Alright, let's have a little walk up. Can't go out to that bit, but we can go up higher. She's actually going pretty high. Here we go. Wow. Ooh, look how dangerous that looks. Alright, time to go down, I think. I'm not a big fan of heights. Right then, so that was Stainborough Castle. And not that far down from Stainborough Castle, we have something called the Sun Monument, or the Sun Obelisk. And this dates to 1746. And this is grade 2 listed. And this obelisk was dedicated to Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, who in 1720 introduced the smallpox vaccine to England from Turkey. And Mary was a poet known for her travel writing, and she also attracts attention today as an early feminist. And I think there's plaques on here with the dedication. There you go. And then another one that you can't quite make out above. Not quite pointing up to the sun at the moment. An interesting wall behind this as well. Can't get to it though because there's a fence. There's a steep drop there, apparently. Alright, let's head back down to the house because the tour will be shortly. This narrow avenue of trees back down towards the house, this is called Lady Lucy's Walk. I'm pretty impressed with this place so far, I've got to say. There's some lovely, lovely views, especially around the house. And just off the west side of the house, we've got this Victorian conservatory. And this was built in around 1887, and this is grade 2 listed. And it's thought that this was built by a firm called Crompton and Fawkes. We're inside. You can see how close it is to the house. Now you'll have just seen that statue inside the conservatory of the kneeling African man, and that was basically placed there because one of the members of the family was actually involved in legislation for the slave trade, and they were actually quite proud of it. So they thought it would be a good idea to get a statue and place it on the estate. But obviously looking back now, it's totally distasteful and wrong. So. But it's good that they're not hiding the past, really. Right, so I'm going for a house tour in a minute, and the house is actually used as a college now, and it's not open that often for tours, so I'm not sure what I'm going to find really, but I'm going to have a look.
We're going to go through it, we'll come back to it, to the original house, we'll see it there first, we'll come back to it. But just before we go in, just look at the carvings at the top there. You've got the little Stratford crest, and you've got the Knight of the Garter motif. so this was a blank wall. So this is quite a small room. The floor again underneath here is quite ornate, but well and truly covered. Okay. Now, sadly, Anne Campbell's epilepsy is probably responsible for her death. One day it's obviously holding it up. It's been here for 250 years, so it should be alright. So you get a clear. So folks, I hope it's been okay. I mean, I know we've had to divert and you can't see anything. I would strongly suggest you come back. We don't know what the one gallery is going to look like.
So that was inside Wentworth Castle, and it was worth having a look, even just to see the juxtaposition between the modern bits of the college and then what was left of the old stuff, like the some really nice ceilings and door cases and stuff like that. So yeah, it's worth having a look around. Yeah, so it basically ended up looking like it does inside now, because in 1949 Captain Bruce Vernon Wentworth sold the house to the Barnsley Corporation, who established it as a teacher training college, and then now it's the home to the Northern College for Residential and Community Education. Alright then, so let's go and have a look for some more garden features. Here we've got a bridge over the Ha-Ha. You can see running around there. This is quite a modern one, 2007. Nicely built. Dry stone walling. And then up here, close to the south front of the house, we have the Corinthian Temple. And this was completed by around 1766. And this is Grade 2 listed. There you go, you can see the Corinthian columns there. Yeah, so in the Georgian period, classical architecture was obviously very much in fashion, and temples like this were common in landscape gardens. And here the second Earl has used the Corinthian style, and he's placed this above the south lawn to reflect the Palladian style he used when building the south face of the house. Look at the gorgeous views. I think this house is really nicely placed. A nice little garden building. And then you'll be able to relax here and look out into that. This is the rear of the temple. Okay, so the next feature is this thing down here. And this is called Archer's Hill Gate. And this is a stone screen with 3 arched openings. And on the top you can see there's some ball finials. And this was built by 1752 for the 2nd Earl of Strafford. And this is Grade 2 listed. And this was actually restored between 2005 and 2008. And this was initially called the Arcade, but now it's called the Archer's Hill Gate. And if you look out, again, with this place, there's another fine view. And then just down from that gate, there's a little area here, and it's called the Earl's Seat. But there's actually nothing here now, but I'm guessing there probably used to be a little building here at some point, which they would have called a garden seat. As you can see, they've put a modern bench here to give the view that would have been there from possibly a little building here. And as you can see, there would have been a lovely view out onto the parkland. If we move around slightly, there's some remains of some kind of concrete or rock or something on the floor, so who knows. There's a nice sheep under that tree giving me the eyes. There he is, having a little walk out. And again, the ha-ha runs all the way down this side. And then just along from the Earl's Seat, back in towards the gardens. Apparently this is the Victorian flower garden. And this is currently having a refresh because I think the guide told me earlier that someone had bequeathed some money in their will to have this bit sort of regenerated. There's a bit of a viewing terrace here that looks over it. So as you can see, there's not much planting going on, but once they've filled that with flowers and stuff, I bet that'll look really nice. And there's sort of another terrace at the other side, as you can see. Okay, actually it's the middle bit's closed off still because of the work they're doing. But here it is from the side. Well, from the other side of where we were just. And a bit further down from that Victorian flower garden, we've got something called the Union Jack Garden. I believe it's because it's in the shape of a Union Jack. And then each part of the flag relates to these little compartments coming out from the centre. So we're in the centre now, and there you go. And then just next to that garden, this is the azalea garden. Not a lot to say about that one, really. And then this leads you out to the side of the house and the conservatory that we saw earlier. So these bits of the garden, they're quite near to the house, really. But now I think I'm going to go out into the parkland and find some more follies, because there's at least 2 or 3 more things to see. Just as I was passing, there's actually a nice view up to the sun monument that we saw earlier, right at the top in the centre of the picture there. Okay, so I'm going out into the parkland, and this avenue of trees here, this is called the Great South Avenue, and I'm going to be going down here right out into the parkland and getting tired, but don't worry about me, you just sit there and I'll be with you in a sec. So there we are, looking back to the house on the avenue. I'm just walking down the Great South Avenue now, as you can see. We've got sheep nearby. Hopefully shouldn't attack me if I keep away from their youngsters. Just coming to the bottom of that avenue now. I think I need to go off to the right. It's quite a way down here actually, and going into some woods now. We'll get there eventually. Aha. Here we go then. So this is the Duke of Argyll monument, and this was built in 1744, and this is grade 2 star listed. The Duke of Argyll was the second Earl's late father-in-law, and he'd been punished for opposing the government's laws against Jacobite sympathisers in Scotland. So, this monument, built by the second Earl shortly after his father's death, could be construed as politically motivated. The Corinthian column is topped by a statue of Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom and war, and I'll get a photo to show you that a bit more close up. And the fact that the monument faces south was felt to be a rebuke to the Whig government of the period. Let's get a bit closer to the base because there's an inscription on there. There you go, to the memory of His Grace, John, Duke of Argyll and Greenwich. died 1743, and the column was dedicated in 1744. Alright, so I need to do another massive trek to another corner of the parkland to find 2 or 3 more features, so time for another little walk. Lovely parkland. So that's the avenue we came down. I think I'm going to head down to the right to try and find the next thing. Oh God, I think I've stepped into the Blair Witch Project or something. Ah, so what's this poking through the trees? What would a Georgian garden be without a rotunda? And this looks like a fine one. Lovely view through the parting of the trees, back up to the house up there. Obviously done on purpose so that the rotunda is sort of an eye catcher from the house, and that you could look back to the house from the rotunda. Yeah, so there's the house up on the top of the hill. And there's the rotunda. So this was built between 1742 and 1746, and this is grade 2 star listed. And this Ionic Temple was based on the Temple of Cybele at Tivoli, near Rome, which William Wentworth may have seen whilst on a grand tour of Europe. And as I mentioned, these type of classical temples were a common addition to country house landscapes in the Georgian era. And you've probably seen that in my other videos as well. And this was built by Thomas's son William, 2nd Earl of Strafford. And somewhere there's an inscription with a date and an S for Strafford. And actually this rotunda lost its roof in a fire in the 1980s, and having become largely ruinous, it was restored in around 2010. And if you look up the top and in various places, you can see where the stones are slightly different colour, where they've added new bits. Let's have a look a bit closer. There's no chance this is going to be open. No, that's firmly shut. This is a nice example, this is. Got these little niches dotted around. Might have had some type of statuary or something in the past. Some old graffiti. Someone was here in 1985 by the looks of it. Looks like it might rain in a little bit. Anyway, let's move on to the next little feature. Okay, so we've got to the next feature, and it's this stone obelisk down here, and this is called the Queen Anne Monument. And this dates to around 1734, and it looks like there's some buildings behind it. I don't know if that was an old lodge to the park or something. So in 1714, the Crown of England controversially passed from the Stuart royal line to the Hanoverians. And this monument is dedicated to Anne, the last Stuart monarch. And it's almost a treasonous statement by Thomas Wentworth, and hints at what he thought of the regime change. And there is an inscription on here, but it's hard to read from down here. But it is there. And again, in the far distance, through the trees, you can actually see the house again, so you would have been able to view this from the house as well. Okay, so let's head to the next bit. I told you at the start there was a lot to see. It's quite a walk so far. I've done 6.7 miles already. I think I've got one more feature to look at, and we should be there shortly. Okay, so there's a lodge building down there, next to the road. And as you can see, there's a bit of a drive up here. And then it carries on up there. And I think this would have been one of the original carriage drives up towards the house. Quite possibly. Let's carry on a bit further. You can see how it's actually on an embankment. The ground's lower on each side. So it's like it was a purpose built driveway. So continuing up this carriage drive, we come to the Palladium Bridge, dating to around 1758. And this goes over something called the Serpentine River, which isn't actually a river, it's man-made. And as you can see, it's quite dry now. There's bits of water down there and stuff. You can see there's a stone wall running across the sides of it. And the stone balustrades that we see here, these must have been destroyed or something happened to them, because these were reinstated between 2005 and 2008. And this is the other side of the bridge where the Serpentine continues. And that's the view back down the carriage drive towards the road and that lodge that I mentioned. Not far from the bridge we got some fallow deer, I think. Yeah. There we go. Sorry to have scared you, mate. And it looks like there's some under that tree over there. It's just starting to rain actually, which is good timing because I'm near the end of my little exploration. Here's the bridge from underneath. So that's pretty much all there is to see at the moment. And I really enjoyed that. I really did. There was absolutely loads to see in the gardens, with the follies and everything. And the parkland was lovely. And some of the views, they were great. And it was still worth having a look inside the house, even though there's only so much old stuff we can see in there nowadays. But that's understandable with the college taking over it. So yeah, as usual, thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed having a little look around. And I shall see you next time. Thanks a lot.